Yeah, so the ego rises to defend or to protect insecurities in a sense that, okay, insecurities are fears that you have not dealt with, are things that you think are inadequate, and you have not dealt with them, you have not accepted them, you have not faced them, you have not actually seen where they come from and try to deal with them, you know. So when you decide to deny your insecurities, that means you have chosen to keep them, you know. And when you choose to keep them, the ego now rises to defend them every time they are threatened. Let me give you an example. Um, if I am insecure about, let me just use the example I've been using. If I'm insecure about my head and I haven't dealt with it, so what I do is I create a narrative. I create another narrative about myself, about the things that I think are inadequate, you know. So if it's my head, I will create a whole new narrative that is completely out of the blue. You know, I have just made it up, you know. I'm like this, I'm like this, I'm like that. And deep inside of me, I know all those are lies. It's just a story I'm creating so that I don't have to deal with the inadequacies that I have inside, you know. So when you create that narrative for yourself and it becomes sort of your truth, it is your truth, but it is a lie. So you're living a lie. So your whole life is just based on a lie, you know, or this thing you're telling yourself, you know. So when you live on this lie that you're telling yourself, whenever this lie is threatened to be exposed, whenever somebody threatens or asks a question that may attack that particular narrative, that puts questions on what you're telling us, you know, you're telling us your head is like this and like this, but we are seeing this and that. Like, whenever somebody makes such a comment, you meet it with the utmost brutal force or whatever, because now the ego has been hurt. The insecurity is almost being exposed. So what the ego does, it rises immediately to defend the insecurity because you have decided to keep it, you know. And once you start operating on the ego, you're going down a very, very dangerous path, you know, because the ego has no moral obligation to anything. The ego will lie, the ego will cheat, the ego will do whatever it takes to get whatever it wants. The ego doesn't even care whether it's using children. The ego doesn't care whether it's using people who are defenseless. The ego doesn't care who it's using. The ego just cares about what it wants, you know. And it's something that takes over a person. I can't particularly say that they are egotistical people. It is something that you let inside of you, you know. And when you let it guide you, when you let it lead you, it will always lead you to the path of destruction. Because first of all, it will always tell you things about yourself that are exaggerated, that are not true. It will always make a situation look better than it is, or you know, it always gives you justifications for certain situations. You know, you're never quite honest with yourself, because first of all, the ego makes you see yourself as this very perfect human being. You don't make mistakes. You will never think something wrong. You will never hurt someone else. You know, you will never lie. You never do that. You never do that. But in actual sense, you know, deep inside you, that you do all those things. But it's because the ego now rises to just give you this other narrative, and it defends it and it keeps it there, you know. So if you keep that ego like that, if it keeps growing and growing and growing, and you get children, and then you are trying to teach your children how to do things. You're trying to tell them, don't do this, do that. You know, you're trying to tell your children that this is the right way, or this is not how it's done. You know, but children are very funny, because children don't do what you tell them to do. Children do what they see you do. You know, and when you are egotistical, you are living a lie. So at home, you are something else, you know, because there's no loss there. Your children, your wife, you can be whoever you want to be, or your husband, you can be there. You can be nasty, you can be stingy, you can be like that with them, you know. But when you go out there, now you want to develop this other persona. This you have to now live the narrative that you are telling yourself, and living this narrative takes a lot of energy, because each and everywhere you go, you have to keep thinking about, am I gonna be found out? Am I giving this story right? Is it the same way I gave it last time? So you're always in this constant state of anxiety, because you are really not sure whether you're gonna be found out. And when you are actually found out, instead of like, okay, I did it, you just take the other route, you are evil people, you are the ones who have done this, you're the ones who have done, but all along it has been you, it has been your ego, and you know it, but you don't want to portray that, because what matters most to the ego is validation, what others say about you, what others say. It makes you so selfish, it makes you live so out of, like, everybody else is not in your head. Like, you don't think about anyone else but yourself, you don't think about anything else but what you want, and you have to get it when you want it, how you want it, whether you have to lie, whether you have to, whatever you have to do to get it, you get it. And in the long run, it ends up giving you really serious consequences, because in life there's no cheating in life. You may think that you're lying and you're doing all those things behind other people's back and they can't see you do them, but the way the Creator made this world is that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So whatever you do, whether you're doing it in secret, whether you're doing it hiding, whether you're doing it and nobody finds out, you are still gonna pay without anybody finding out. Yeah, that is just how funny life is. Cause, effect. So the best thing to handle this kind of attitude, this egotistical thing, is face your insecurities. Look at what it is. When something makes you angry, like there are things that just make you tick. Like when somebody insults your mother, when somebody talks shit about your legs, when somebody talks shit about this, when somebody talks about this, it really gets you off and you just want to fight or you want to do anything. Now, when you get angry, just catch yourself there. That is an insecurity. Ask yourself, why am I getting this angry about this thing? Is it necessary for me to get this angry? Okay, there are things that warrant you to get angry, but there are other things that you don't really need to get that angry about, So when you get to that point, you need to ask yourself, why am I getting this angry? Is it something that I'm not facing? Is it a truth that I am denying about myself that is making me behave like this, that is making me treat my children like this, that is making me treat my parents like this? Because an egotistical person, or a person who is being led by ego, sees everything and everyone as a tool to achieve their ends. It doesn't matter whether you are their child, whether you are their mother, whether you are their father. It doesn't matter whether you are their grandmother. They're going to use you. They're going to use you to get to what they want to get. And instead of like losing relationships that are really important to you, why don't you just address the insecurity? It takes time. It's tough. But in the long run, it's going to be more rewarding even to you. And it's going to end this cycle. And if you are in a relationship, or you are friends, or you are having an interaction with a person who is this egotistical, then my advice to you is cut them off. Cut them off if they don't deal with their egotism. Just cut them off. Because if you do not cut them off, they are going to put you down, low self-esteem, inferior. Because the only way you deal with an egotistical person, the only way you can have a good friendship is if you massage their ego all the time. You flatter them about how sweet their narrative is, though it's a lie. You tell them, yeah, that narrative that you're telling yourself is correct. It is how it is. Like, you just approve. You're just a yes person. They just love yes people, And losing a relationship with an egotistical person is not a loss. It is a gain. But if you're that egotistical person, it is time to face your insecurities and make a change. Peace.